This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, good morning, everybody, or I guess good afternoon now. My name is Lori McIsaac, Director of Experiential Tourism Development here with RTO9. Joining me today is Brett Christopher. Brett is Managing Artistic Director of Thousand Islands Playhouse in Gananoque. Brett, I really appreciate you taking some time today to chat with us and tell us about your partnership fund project with RTO9 last year. So I've got a few
Okay,
questions, if that's okay.
great. Of
Uh,
course, of course.
Awesome. So Thousand Islands Playhouse was awarded funding last year through our partnership funding program for your Music on the Dock project. Can you tell us a little bit about your the original, because it did end up being changed as a result of COVID, but can you give us a little bit of an idea of what the original Music on the Dock project was
Of
all
course.
about?
Well, what we've tried to do, I'll kind of take it one step back. What we've always tried to do in terms of our applications to the partnership funds is a new idea every time. So like to actually fund a project in its infancy and then kind of run with it or not, just sort of test market stuff with our audience, with the region, and see whether or not, like with the support of RTO9, that we can actually test ideas out and some take flight and some don't. And the first one we did a few years ago was our pre-show podcast. So we found that a lot of people were driving in the region 25 minutes to get to the theater. So we thought, well, we've got them stuck in their cars for 25 minutes. Let's create a podcast that is actually a pre-show interview with the artist that they're going to see, as opposed to like a Q&A that you would see after the show, especially because a lot of people, once the show is done, want to get out of there. So, or they're on to their next thing, or they're going to their hotel or whatever, other thing that they're doing within the region. So we developed that podcast with the support of RTO9 funding. I'm getting to the next one, I promise you. And in fact, that has been a hugely successful project for us. So we got partnership funding that first year. We kind of launched it, and ever since then it has grown. And we now have a relationship with 999, like with MyFM locally. So they actually edit the whole program and broadcast it. And we are on Spotify, and it's sort of the podcast has just taken flight. So the next project that we applied for, which is the one that we're talking about today, was Music on the Dock. And Music on the Dock, in its infancy, was actually just like an ancillary component of the experience of coming to the theater. So, like many people know, this is Canada's dockside theater, and the sort of unique feature of this specific live performing arts venue is that it sits on the banks of the St. Lawrence. You can actually bring your boat up to the dock. So we thought, a lot of people enjoy the view from the deck as much as they do the shows inside. So why don't we actually put some art on the deck while they're waiting to go into the show, or put some music on the deck at intermission, et cetera. So Music on the Dock was born as an idea. And as we grew it, we realized if we really want to pay artists what they're worth, we really need some support. So that's when we came with that idea to RTO9, and this idea that we would, for 2 weeks in the summertime, we were going to create this program. We're going to try and drive more people into the region with a sort of mini festival that was like I said, a companion of the experience of coming to the Thousand Islands Playhouse. As everyone knows, things happen. We've certainly learned over the last 18 months, things happen. So that specific project was the funding was supporting the remuneration of the artists that were going to be involved. And we had a whole kind of wide array, from violinists to ukulele club to singer-songwriters to rock and roll. Like it was really kind of all over the place, classical music. And we were really excited for that specific endeavor to be, like I said, a sort of adjunct to the experience of coming to the theater itself.
Awesome. Awesome. I was super stoked when you put in your application for Music on the Dock, because I love the idea of doing things in different places. And that just sounded like such a great project. What impact did the pandemic have on all of it, and the kind of the direction you ended up going in? And what were the biggest sort of changes that you had to make? And then the last part of that question would be, how did it go over? How was it received? How did you work with the city?
Well, so Music on the Dock, well, naturally with the pandemic, we, normally we have about 50,000 people that come through this venue every summer. And as the weeks and months went on, we realized that we were going to have to start to cancel performances, and then eventually we had to cancel the entire season. So there was really no point in doing live performing arts on the dock because no one was actually going to be visiting the venue. So we sat down and, we spent a lot of time in the summertime trying to reassess what we do, trying to figure out an alternative way of putting art into the community, whether that was theater or music or something that we believed in, just because organizationally that is what we do. And we realized that music on the dock, because it was supported by R209, because it was an idea that kind of existed separate from our normal theater season, was something that we could, for lack of a better term, manipulate to pivot, I guess. Let's say manipulate. We're not so, that's not as overused. To create something for the community. So a lot of the thinking for us this year was, wow, we're one of the biggest organizations in this community of 5,000 people. And although we're not putting bums in the seats of the theater this year, we do still bear some responsibility for ensuring that the community makes it through this time, through this pandemic. And Music on the Block was actually probably the first of the projects that we undertook. So I've given away the title. Music on the Dock became Music on the Block, AKA the infamous 80s, late 80s kids band. What is it? Boy band? Boy band. New Kids on the Block. So we sort of riffed on that. And we thought to ourselves, why don't we, porch concerts were a COVID-friendly experience. Certainly like outdoor concerts were happening in summer 2020. We thought, why don't we actually take this funding and, we maintained our staff, despite the fact that we closed the theaters, we maintained our staff. So let's put our thinking caps on and figure out a way that we can actually launch a festival called Music on the Block with the support of this funding. And as you indicated, we actually, because the town had lost its music series in Joelstone Park, which it has every Friday and Saturday nights through the summer times, we went to them and said, could you use some of the funding that you normally support artists with that project and bring it into this, and we'll make something quite substantial in September. Another good thing. Who doesn't like a good September project?
Absolutely.
So, so Music on the Block was born, and what started off as let's do a concert in the parking lot and let's do a couple porch concerts became a 34 event, 3 weekend fest throughout Gananoque. We had 16 different venues, and over 50 artists were featured across, all these various locations. Like I said, we really wanted to find places where people didn't have to like seek us out, and certainly didn't have to buy a ticket. So we put musicians up and down King Street, like up and down the main street here in Gan, and we did a huge parking lot concert, local, like outside the Fire Hall Theater, right here beside us. And we just went and found porches all over town. Literally for a week, I drove around going like, wow, that'd be a great porch to do a concert on, and that would be a great porch. And then we just started reaching out to people. We'd go and literally knock on a door and say, hey, we know it's COVID, but your community here probably could really use some music. Would you be okay if we hosted a porch concert on your porch? And literally not a person said no. Every single person was like, I'd love to just do something, please. And so it really became much more community focused as an event. Having said that, we did have a lot of people coming into town, but we were trying to be very careful with regards to, interregional cross-pollination of COVID numbers. COVID numbers were very low, certainly in Gananoque and even within our health unit. And so we were really trying to prevent too many people coming from too far. We kind of kept the marketing tight. But in the end, it became this incredible product, for lack of a better term, incredible community experience that, no matter where you look, there was some concert that popped up and some musician that was playing in the middle of the day. And again, one of the other things that we did with it in terms of the funding was obviously all of the musicians were paid an appropriate level and a living wage, because a lot of them had lost a lot of gigs, and all of them were regional. So all of the musicians were from the region, from the locality, which we also believed really that was a very important feature of this local festival that we were creating.
Yeah, I think, I had a grin the entire time you're talking. And when we spoke before about the changes you were making to this, I was just, it's just exciting. Any kind of change like that, I think is really exciting. And you talked a lot about how important it was, one, to be able to pay your performers and pay them a living wage. And then having these on porches, actually like house porches, that some of them were on. And, you know, if there's one thing, there's many things that COVID has taught us, but if there's one thing that I think it really drove home is that the tourist isn't necessarily somebody that's coming from another city, another province, another country.
Hmm.
Throughout the pandemic, tourists became the people across the road,
Yeah.
because in order to, it's kind of a two sides of the coin, in order to keep businesses afloat and be able to pay performers and people who work in you know, restaurants and shops and everything else, it's we needed to shift, the entire world needed to shift their focus to create tourism within our own boundaries. And that was just a fantastic example of how to do that, and it was so cool. So, you know, the tourists, I know I talked to a lot of partners, and originally tourism is defined as somebody who comes from 40 kilometers away or
Right.
further. That changed. It was 40 meters. It was the guy next door. It was, you know, the girl who used to did your hair. It was the librarian. It was everybody who's local. So it's been really great seeing how your project and others like yours have you know, kind of transitioned into what worked. So are you going to be taking any of that forward at all? Any of that part of that programming forward?
Well, it's interesting because you know, as the pandemic, I should say this now, but now we're sort of heading to the fourth wave, presumably. As it lessened over through 2021, the impact lessened, a lot of live music. Gananoque is a hotbed of music, ironically, even though we're a theater, but there's a lot of music here. And in fact, you know, the Joe Stone concert series came back. There was another big series just over the Labor Day weekend. And there's going to be another big concert series at the end of September. And so we said, well, you know, like, we did that because there was nothing. Like, there was a dearth of product at that time, and even just community events and something to gather people in a safe way. And so we're actually going to retool it again, constantly kind of trying to turn the dials and modulate based on what's out there. And I think what we'll do is we'll actually do a series of concerts in December. So it'll be less sort of a, you know, concert series outside, and instead we're starting to partner with other groups in town who want to do more December events, more sort of holiday themed stuff. And we've just taken a piece of it and said, like, okay, well, you know, we've now gleaned this experience of producing live music. Let's take the part of that is live music. So putting musicians in the band shell in Town Park, and we'll host concerts here, like holiday concerts here at the Playhouse. And in doing so, ostensibly, and by putting all these partners together, creating a really bona fide December product for a town that, you know, generally is very, very seasonal in terms of its sort of summer market. So
Right.
I think it's funny kind of how it sort of evolved through. And again, it's like, if there's one thing I've learned through this time, it's being nimble, even for a big company like this, is essential. Listening to the people that are out there, seeing what else is going on, so you're not sort of all happening at the same time or trotting on the same piece of grass. And instead going like, oh, here's how actually we can fit in here, or here's how we can support somebody else's thing, and really working together as a community to just continue to raise the watermark, literally.
Yeah.
No, let's like, no high water, no high water jokes, no high water. Fingers crossed for 2022.
True enough. So
Yeah.
you mentioned quite a bit about new partners, whether that's somebody who has a great patio, a great porch that you wanted to play on, or you worked with the city a lot more closely. Certainly something that we've recognized working with our partners right across the RTO9 region. How important was it for you to find new partners, not just the ones that you have that, you know, have been with you through thick and thin, but to attract new partners to something like this?
Working with other organizations, other groups, DMOs, like commercial businesses, municipal government is the only way that projects can have an impact. I really believe that. And you know, aligning projects so that they create a fulsome experience, whether that's over a piece of the calendar, or whether that is a really kind of like compact, big experience at the same time. Nobody, certainly in like a region of this size, or certainly in this community, has the budget to do something that could immediately be national in scope. So instead, the way we are able to accomplish that is by working with a bunch of groups and you know, as a bunch of puzzle pieces, create something that could garner national attention. I really think that's the only way that these communities across the RTO9 will have a major impact in terms of tourism, is by joining forces and creating, you know, a vibe, whatever that is. I think that that's what the county, like what Prince Edward County has done so well, is that there is a vibe now in that region. You know, if you go to the city of Halifax, when you say the word Halifax, you think of the vibe of that place. You know, and I think that that is a lesson to be learned for all of these different communities. And certainly that's why, you know, as much as we have 50,000 people come to the theater every year, and that's a substantial amount for this region, I think we could always find partners to work and make that even more impactful, you know, or take those 50,000 people and make sure that they that they're in the region for 5 days instead of 2, or, you know, they're in GAN for 3 days instead of 1, or just an afternoon. So we're really trying to curate that experience. We talk about it all the time here in the company internally, is like, we need to curate the experience while they're here, like on our site, even, you know, from the phone call to the minute that the car drives away, we curate that experience. But then again, as a community, we can curate it even longer, you know, so that there's always something to do. They're always receiving something that intrigues them.
Agreed.
I think, and so going back to Music on the Block, I think Music on the Block, you know, to your point, one neighbor was having a concert and all of the neighbors gathered to watch it, which is great. Certainly like community morale and boosting just the feeling of we're going to make it through this together. But I do also think when you have that sort of outdoor event, when you have things just occurring in the community, especially spontaneously, it creates a vibe, right? Your community all of a sudden has a bit of a personality, and people come in and they're like, this place is cool. There's stuff going on here. There's stuff happening.
It makes it that much easier to build upon that vibe as well moving forward with you and partners. Awesome, great explanation. Thank you for that. So you receive funding every mid-February, usually. RTO9 opens up the applications for partners. And there are a few categories that tourism-based businesses can apply for. So I would encourage anyone who's interested in finding out more, who may be watching this, to visit our industry website, which is tourismtalk.ca, and click on the partnership funding tab to find out a little bit more. The categories do change a little bit from year to year, but one that is constant, which you did apply under, is the new or enhanced product development, and that's a tourism product that we're looking for. But again, there will be some other categories in there, so I would encourage people to reach out. But beyond the whole funding aspect, Brett, what really worked for you in the relationship with RTO9? What other ways were we able to help?
I mean, there's probably two halves to that answer for me. One half is just I run an arts organization. I don't run and it's a destination theater per se, but I'm not necessarily experienced personally in tourism. I love tourism. I love to be a tourist, especially, but I don't have a degree in tourism or hospitality or any of those things. I'm a raised, trained actor. So I really look to like a lot of the posts that you guys do, the newsletter, for a lot of expertise, speakers. Like I think that stuff for me, really, that sort of educational component from RTO9 is integral to my kind of growth in my understanding in that way. Even like helpful hints from social media stuff. And I think that's a very important part of our relationship with RTO9. And the other piece is, of course, like just the marketing support, like social media support. You know, I know Lindsay in your office came during Music on the Block and shot some footage and took some pictures and was like putting it out in the Instagram story, et cetera. I'm like, that's huge for us, because you guys have a much wider reach than we do as a singular organization. Again, kind of partnering. What is it? Rising tide floats all boats.
That's it.
Literally, as I look at the St. Lawrence River out my window. So like in those two ways, for me, RTO9 it's a very important partner of what we're doing here in Gananoque.
Yeah, that's terrific. And it is a big part of what we do. It's always great to get the money. Everyone likes to get money.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that I have new partners that have reached out and said, you know, I just don't want to fill out the application because applications are always so hard. And I'm always here to help review applications. So no one needs to be afraid to, you know, to put in an application or to ask questions at any point. Any of the team at RTO9 are here to help. You mentioned Lindsay. Lindsay Medeiros is our digital marketing specialist, and she is just a creative whiz when it comes to getting things out on social media and visiting and blogging about it and taking photographs. And so she really does help our partners in both in direction of how to maybe enhance your social media, but also personally to get involved, whether it's herself or an influencer that we utilize. So, but that's amazing, and it's a big part of what we do here at RTO9. Certainly not all that we do by any stretch, but I would encourage anyone just to visit our industry website again at tourismtalk.ca. Shameless plug there.
That's shameless. It's a very useful tool. That's not shameless. You're not selling anything. You're giving it away.
That's it. But so last question for you before I let you go, Brett. Any words of wisdom for other tourism-based businesses regarding working with RTO9, whether it's the partnership fund or whether it's just in general connecting with RTO9?
I mean, it's interesting that you, first of all, like Lindsay, Steve, yourself, Bonnie, all very, very approachable people, like experts in their field. Like I would always say, it's worth picking up the phone. And, you know, like the good organizations, to me, are peopled by those that will happily support, answer questions. It's not scary in any way. It's just like, I need some help. Here's an idea. What do you think? As you said, you're happy to kind of review applications. It's not a you know, secretive process. You can be very like, yeah, no, that sounds good. Or no, you really need to tweak here, here, and here if you want to be successful in this application. I think the applications, I know people say that they're scary or they take a long time. Yours really doesn't, frankly. I've written a lot of grants in my day being a leader of an arts organization. And I would say the partnership bonds, the RTO application, very, very simple to fill out. So, you know, comparatively speaking. But I would say, like, when an opportunity like this comes along, and you look at the, you know, the various buckets, the envelopes of, or the ideas that are being funded, it is worth just looking at that and then allowing your imagination to think, like, how does this idea that I have fit one of these things? Like, actually allow the application to stoke your imagination. You know, like you said, we tend to apply to the new or enhanced project stream because that's exactly what we use this funding for. We go, as I said, we're gonna, like, I got this crazy idea and RTO9 is gonna help me, like, beta test this, you know, as part of our organization. And you know, luckily, generally it's been a successful project that we've then taken to the next level and beyond. But I think that applications can actually stoke imagination and trying to figure out, okay, what is the thing that, you know, it's less like, I'm not writing this for you, Lori, I'm writing this for the region. This is something that the region doesn't have yet. And this is something that would be really cool or be, like you said, an enhancement to even another, like, you know, I'm 2 minutes away from the Thousand Islands Boat Museum, the Thousand Islands Heritage Museum, and the Gananoque boat line. Okay, so what, like, project that we could put would be an enhancement to one of those projects and create the sort of, you know, like I said, a multi-day experience here in Gananoque. So I think it's like, it can stoke that. I think it's really important that rather than going like, I have an idea and darn it, this thing won't fund it. It's going like, okay, this funding opportunity is there. Like, what's a new thing that we could come up with that's interesting and unique that they're going to help support so I don't lose my shirt, you know, like testing this thing out by myself. We'll lose our shirts together.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great way of just coming up with new ideas, you know.
Excellent. Yeah, great answer. And I couldn't agree more. And again, just before we log off here, I would suggest if anyone is interested, we're an email, we're a phone call away. Any of us, Steve Weir, our marketing and communications manager, Bonnie Ruddock, who is our executive director. I mentioned Lindsay already, our digital marketing specialist, and myself. Any one of us can help you, even if it's not for project, the partnership funding project. If you need a connection within the tourism industry, if you need help with something that will help you get your tourism product on the on the map, then we're the ones that can potentially help you. So I would encourage anyone to reach out. If we don't know the answer, we'll find the person that does. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining me today. And I know that you're going to be on one of the panelists at our tourism summit this Friday, September 10th.
Honored.
So we're thrilled to have you as part of that as well. But looking forward to your next project. Hope you're applying for funding again, because it is not a one-shot deal. We do fund for more than 1 year, depending on the scope of your project. So really excited to be chatting with you. Appreciate you taking the time.
I got to come up with an idea. I got to come up with a really good idea.
Okay, we'll talk.
Post-COVID ideas. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, it's coming. Gosh, I hope it's coming. We all do.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you taking the time, Brett, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks so much, Lori.
Take care.